Hey guys, this is Ghost, and I am back again. This is part 6 of the Lost Crusade 101 series. In this video, I'll be talking about some of the advanced kind of concepts of the battle system. So this will be for the more experienced players. You might get something more out of this. Now, if you're brand new to the battle system, I wouldn't start here. Go back to the previous video and watch the basic one and kind of learn the basics first, and then come back to this one. And we will get into some of the advanced concepts. So what I want to start at kind of is we talked about kind of who gets to strike first, what gets punched first, where to see all the battle information. But now it's like, okay, I have all that information. Like, what's good? You know, what in this game is worth like investing hero resources into, you know, and that kind of things. Which of the heroes are good, which are bad, that kind of stuff. I'll go into more detail about the individual heroes in a separate video. In this one, I'm just kind of going to talk about like what is good overall, like in general, and then I'll do a more specific review of each hero in a later video, and kind of talk about what their uses are for each one individually. So what I want to start with actually is, I'm just going to say this right off the bat. Right now, with the current state of the game, the dodge mechanic is the most powerful thing right now. I think eventually attack speed will beat that. Eventually, I think attack speed, once characters like Tellian get improved enough and we get enough shards for them and we get enough of the Honorifica to upgrade their abilities, I think that actually will beat it. And I think potentially maybe even someone like Seth, who has that dodge avoiding ability, can be really good. So I think eventually dodge will go down, but it might take so long for people to get there that it might not ever actually go down. So for now, dodge is king, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Let me jump into Arenica here. My game's a little laggy because my other video is being produced right now in the background. I'm trying to save time because I have a limited window of opportunity to make these here, so I'm trying to be quick. So if you see my game being a little laggy, I apologize. Alright, so take a look at this ability of hers, Evasive Maneuvers. When our army takes damage, there's a 16.56% chance to dodge the damage. Arenica is probably the best hero, like beginning. I mean, she's good at any point in the game because her shards are easily accessible, and because she has really good abilities like this all troops HP, all troops march speed, defense. Like, those are all good, really good characteristics. But then she also has a dodge, and then she has this damage over time thing, which I really haven't invested much into yet. But she has the potential to increase damage, and then this is just like, you know, her expedition thing, but you get the point. She has really good abilities. She's really accessible, because I'll talk about it more in the hero video. But if you get somebody like Seth and Tellian, it's like, okay, they're good, but if you have no shards and no stars for them, you can't actually use their abilities. So they're actually worse than somebody like, you know, Alvinus, right? Who is, you can get shards for and you can upgrade. So it doesn't really matter that they're legendary. That has no bearing on how powerful they are. What really matters is that, you know, you get the abilities for them, you get the shards and that kind of thing. And so going back to dodge, the typical dodge build you'd see would be kind of going all in on that concept, because what dodge does is, if you haven't seen it in a battle, say I have 3,000 level, you know, tier 6 vanguards, and I swing at your, you know, 3,000 tier 6 dreads. There's this chance here to completely avoid 100% of the damage, which is why it's really powerful, because it doesn't just reduce the damage, it avoids it completely 100%. You just miss. So potentially you could take, you know, a whole big chunk of the opponent's army and have them do no damage for that round of the fight, right? So it's really, really good, because all of these, when you have more than one hero, it stacks. So we have her 16.5%, and if later in the game we get Shrike, and we get his goes up to 16.56% as well, you know, and then we also get Cordus in there with his, I think his is a little bit lower, his goes up to 15, but you know, you're talking almost 50%, actually over 50% dodge there once they're all maxed out. Now, granted, it would take a while to get Shrike that high, but, you know, we do have 3 dodge heroes at the beginning of the game, in Arenica, Cordus, who we saw earlier with his, and then also Vex. So if you haven't started yet, these are the 3 heroes you should really focus on right now at the beginning of the game. I would say these 3, you know, Arenica, Cordus, Vex, but then also maybe Tycho, and I'll talk about why later, and also Alistair. And I was really slow to get him leveled up. You can see I haven't really done anything with him except his ability. The reason you want to buff him up is because of his expedition ability to use on breaches and things like that. But those are the 5 heroes you kind of want to buff right now. And going back to dodge a little bit, so if you've got that buffed up and you've got a 40% chance to dodge all that damage, you can do some really annoying things, like what I'll show you here. I'm going to go out to the star map. If this thing loads, it's really slow right now, I apologize. And let me just find some chaos to fight or something. You can do some really annoying things, like with this build here. What I've done essentially is, if you've noticed, I'll take one of these. Whoops, I don't want to click on that. I take one of all of these little guys except for Dreads, because I don't want to get taken out by the base defenses. I don't want my Dreads to die to base defenses. I want them to be used to basically stop opponents from hitting. But all these little stacks can potentially make your opponent waste attacks because they might dodge it, right? So that's the idea with dodge. That's why dodge is powerful. As a matter of fact, I don't take any Vanguards anymore or any Dreads in my attacks. I only take the little dodge stacks, Whirlwinds, Hellblasters, and Predators, because it takes a really long time to get through all those little dodge stacks of Hellblasters and Vanguard. So if you can only do one thing, like you can only upgrade 3 heroes and you're not going to upgrade anybody else, definitely go for dodge first. That's where you should start. That's kind of how the heresy stacks work. If you want to learn more about the heresy kind of build, and that's what we call this build with the dodge, go back and watch my previous videos on the heresy. You can see kind of where we discovered it, how we improved upon it, and then I haven't actually made a video on this latest development where I don't include any Vanguard. But I will at some point. I'll talk about that more later. But yeah, you can watch those previous videos and kind of get an idea of how you should build this out. It's really good. You'll see in some battle reports where I'll show you a sample. I showed this in the previous one. Went over here to Crimson Guard's base. I sent 8,000 at his 20,000, and I only lost 43 troops. Right? Because the whole battle, you'll see him swinging at those little tiny units over and over and over and over. And I think I lost only Vanguard and Dreads. Is basically inconsequential. I basically lost nothing of value, and he lost everything. So that gets really powerful. Right now, that's the most powerful thing in the game. If you don't take anything from this video, just remember, dodge, dodge, dodge. Just go back and watch my heresy videos. Check those out. If you haven't got one of these presets in here yet with a dodge build, with a heresy build, do that as soon as possible, because it's going to really help you out in the long run. The next thing that I think is probably the next most powerful thing is attack speed modifiers. And this right now will kind of be more for rallies, because if you notice, Tycho's ability, like we talked about before, decreases enemy attack speed by 20%. That's really good, because you can, if you stack those with a lot of players, you can debuff their attack speed significantly, so that a good chunk of your armies, I say that plural because if you're in a rally you have more than one person. Imagine five people's Vanguards and Primaris all swinging before they even get a chance to react. You could get through all their Dreads and probably some of their Vanguard, maybe even all of their Vanguard, depending on what their build looks like, if you can debuff their attack speed. So it's really powerful. Like I said, I think eventually, very late game, this will be the most powerful thing in the game. Right now we're not quite there yet, because it's hard to get heroes that have that are decent. There's a couple others. Praedy's has that. His max is going to be a bit lower. He tops out at 20.8 for debuff, but he's a good hero. I mean, he has other stuff, increases damage, and he can remove debuffs, so he can remove attack speed debuffs from your side, which is like, okay, that's pretty good. So he's decent, but Tycho's cap on that actually goes higher if we go to level up. His goes up to, I think, I still have 2 stars down, so I think his probably goes up to like 25% or something like that. Because right now we're at 20, it'll go 23, and then maybe like 26-ish for the final star. So, and we'll get there soon, because we're doing our breaches every day and things like that. So we'll get Tycho up there pretty quickly here. There's another hero that does it, but he's really focused on defense, and that's Omnius. So he does the same thing. He has the same thing that Praedy's has, same ability. But again, he's a rare hero, so the numbers aren't as high as you'd have with like a an epic or a legendary. So yeah, he's a good in a base defense situation, because if you look, I mean, Dreadnought attack, that's not very good because Dreadnoughts aren't great attackers. But Defender's defense, that's good, you know, and then he reduces incoming damage, he increases your own army's damage, and he decreases enemies' attack speed. So like, you know, you can send out a build potentially to just be like a debuffer, right? So, you know, say for example, oh, I want to join this rally, but I don't have very many troops left, or I'm tier 5 and everybody else is tier 7. Well, I'll just throw in Omnius Tycho and what's the other one? Praedes, and I'll send one troop, and I won't take up any cap in that rally, but I'm going to debuff their attack speed massively. All right, so even if you don't have troops that can contribute and you just want to stay back, you could send one level 1 Predator, but with all of your attack speed debuffing heroes, and really contribute to your allies even without even sending troops, because all of those debuffs apply in those rallies. So that's a really cool thing to do. Even if you're out of troops and you're out of the fight, join the rallies and just send attack speed debuffers. Or join the rally and just send some heresy stacks, right? Don't have anything else, just send a few of those annoying heresy stacks, because you'll help defend your opponents or defend your allies against incoming attacks. So, you know, you're never really out of the fight. You can always contribute in a rally, just with your hero, you know, just with your hero abilities. So keep that in mind. So yeah, those are some sample hero builds. If you want an idea of kind of how to include that attack speed, one kind of good take all comers thing would be like, you know, Arenica, Cordis, and Vex we mentioned, but if you want another one that's like, say you don't have your Vex leveled up, you could do like Arenica, Cordis, and Tycho, and then you'll have a little bit of dodge, you'll have a little bit of attack speed debuff, and that's like kind of a good middle ground take all comers kind of hero build. One thing worth mentioning is Cordis here, he also buffs Primaris attack and defense, so he is like really solid when it comes to like attack and defense, because he'll make those Primaris a little tanky, but he'll also buff their attack, you know, pretty dramatically at that 36% that I have here. Now I don't have him leveled very high yet because I'm waiting for the strike wheel. So once I get him up to like 89 or so on the next strike wheel, that's gonna go up even further. So, you know, he's really good just on his own. Vex eventually will get swapped out because he does increase Vanguard veteran defense, and that's pretty good. But he kind of generally is a more defensively oriented hero. So once we start getting shards for Shrike, I'm going to swap Vex out for Shrike eventually. And then it'll be, because if you notice, he's a better attacker. So he does increase Vanguard defense and HP, which is better than Vex. He has the better dodge because he's a legendary. And he also increases your attack. So he's just strictly better than Vex pretty much in all ways. So, and his abilities are all good too. So yeah, he's eventually going to replace Vex in that build. In terms of other things, what you could do, if you notice here, like I spent money on Sicarius, and he's good. He would be like a Vanguard focused attack. So say for example, you want to do like an Alpha Strike kind of thing. Maybe you like do this, right? You could do a build focused on one specific unit type, and just send all of those units. As long as you had some type of theme going and there was some synergy there, you could do it, right? So one of the builds I used to have was like Sicarius for the Vanguard, and then along with Adremus, because one thing I forgot to mention about attack speed is also a few characters increase your attack speed. So that would also help you to strike first. So Adremus does that. So maybe I take like, you know, Adremus, Sicarius, and Shrike, I suppose, if once I get him leveled. And so I'll have a little bit of dodge there, I'll have some huge buffs to my Vanguard, and then I'll actually get to strike pretty fast with, you know, the Adremus buffing my attack speed. And then he also buffs Vanguard veteran attack speed. So you could do kind of theme builds like that. I still don't think it will be as powerful as like just going pure dodge, just because, okay, great, you've increased your Vanguard veteran attack by 80%, 100%. That's awesome, right? That's cool. You miss, and none of it goes through. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant because you missed, because your opponent has a 45% dodge. And yeah, awesome. When you do hit, you're going to kill whatever you hit, but there's a 45% chance you'll miss. So I think in those matchups, you're better off just taking the mirror and just taking your own dodge build, because then you're kind of evening the playing field a little bit. I think if it's like a heresy build versus like you know, a Vanguard focused build or a Primaris focused build, you would, you know, I think the Heresy build would win out on that. I don't have any concrete proof of that because there's no way to sandbox that. It's just a feeling that I have. I guess I do have some experience in that because I used to take that Primaris build, or excuse me, that Vanguard focused build, and then I would take a Primaris focused one with Cordus and Solaris, because he buffs Primaris attack as well, and he's got good abilities like increasing a flat damage increase and damage decrease, and then increasing crit. So like, you know, if you see here, Solaris and Cordus both buff crit damage. So like, if you got a crit off that, it'd be huge. And then it'd make it like a heavy Primaris build. And I forget who the other one was. I think I took like Praedes. He buffs Predators, but he just has this suppressive fire. So I got a little bit, you know, I'm taking a heavy Primaris build there, you know, to focus on that. Got a little bit of dodge, I got a little bit of attack speed debuff, and then I've got Solaris there, you know, with his attack increases too. But I think those, even though it's like a good build, it's definitely better than just taking random heroes, right? It's a cohesive kind of theme, because you're focusing on buffing one unit type, so you're going to go heavy into that unit type. It still loses against dodge, I think, because dodge is just that powerful. So, you know, I had those built in as presets, but I got rid of them just because if you take a balanced build with dodge, you're better sending that out 2 or 3 times, even if it dies, than you are taking these focus builds. Eventually, maybe if they nerf dodge or something else happens, then those will come back, right? Like, those will be totally valid builds. Oh, excuse me, I took Cantor also for the Primaris one, because he buffs Primaris attack and defense, and he's basically Solaris, but better, I think. So, yeah, I think I took him instead, but you get the idea. So those are some kind of hero builds. Like, if you don't have your dodge, like, leveled up yet, and you're still working on it, you kind of have some ideas of what to take. So yeah, that's kind of it for hero builds, some sample hero builds, and kind of the concept of what you do. Now I kind of want to talk about, first I want to talk about things to remember before you attack. Number one, I'm checking my time here. We're good. I'm trying to keep it kind of short. Things to do before you attack. It's such a long list that it's worth talking about. Number one, if you're planning out an attack and you're just not reacting, if you're just reacting, you won't have time to do this. But if it's like Breach the Storm and you're like, all right, you know, for one day, I'm going to change my heroes. Like, I'm going to take my 3 best heroes and I'm going to stick them into the chapter champion slot, because right now I don't have my best heroes there. I guess Sicarius, he stays in there because he gets a bonus there, if you see. But, you know, I would move Arinica and I think Cordus probably, or Vex down to those spots. And I think I get close to like 80 or... It's more than that. It's like 88% or something bonus. And pretty soon at Battle Bards 31, I will get another one to put in there. So I'll be at like 120, 100%, 120% bonuses on those. So if you remember, swap out your heroes, because I typically keep them on the harvesting speed one. Because if you notice there, boost my harvesting speed by 122% overall. So I keep them there when things are quiet. If we're about to attack something, I'm going into Void Supremacy, or, you know, Breach the Storm's coming up, I'll move them down to that chapter champion. So that's the first thing to remember. Second thing to remember, buff items. Don't forget, oops, wrong button. Don't forget to go, wrong button again. Fat fingers. Don't forget to go in here to your items, go to your war, and just throw all these in there. I don't know what you would need or what you wouldn't need, so I can't tell you, like, you know, but just use all 4. Just take a 1 hour one and use, you know, attack, defense, army size, and I think the other one is HP. Just throw every single one of those in there, and then you're good to go. You're solid. So use all those. And this is a lot. It's ridiculous. Like, there's so many different things. So throw your buff items on, especially if you're about to join a rally or something. You're going out on Breach the Storm, and you're gonna, you know, pick a fight with somebody. Buff items. So that's that. Next thing, Sons of Guilliman. Down here, I'm gonna switch. Well, before that, I can even go into this. Switch your strat, right? I don't want to use Sons of Guilliman right now, so I'm just going to manually switch it over. Switch your strat. Switch over to your war strat. I talked about in a previous video that was kind of unrelated to this series, but I think it's still up, about, you know, how you should build these out. Yeah, switch to your war stat. You'll get all your bonuses for your Vanguards and your Dreads and all that kind of stuff. So switch to your war stat and then use Sons of Guilliman, and you'll get another army size increase, right? And so that's still not it though. Last thing is, let's find something to punch. use your knight to hit that button on your knight and deploy your knight. So that's like 5 things you have to remember. But if you do all those things, your buffs will be massive, not only to your army size, which is pretty huge. I guess army size matters more if you're a solo attacking, right? You're gonna go out on the Breach of the Storm by yourself, and you're gonna pick off some stragglers or something. Army size matters because every troop you get in there on offense, if you're fighting barges by yourself, really matters. In rallies, it doesn't matter so much because you might end up just like, say you buffed your army size by like 3,000, you might actually stop somebody else from joining that rally because right now the nav quarters are kind of in a weird space. They're not giving, before they weren't giving us enough of those nav quarters items to upgrade it. So everybody had really low nav quarters, but it seems like they're pushing those out more. So eventually, if you watch this later, nav quarters might not be an issue. It might be fine. But, you know, if you buff your army size, you might stop somebody else from joining the rally, and you might end up with less troops than if you had buffed your army size. So, yeah, just keep that in mind when it comes to rallies. Maybe you skip using those army size ones just to make sure you get more people in. There's no way of knowing, though, so you just kind of gotta roll with it. That's it as far as like what you need to include when you attack. Now, one thing I want to talk about is how to determine who to attack. Are you going to solo attack? Are you going to rally? You know, what are you going to do, right? So if there's a couple rule of thumbs here. You have to scout first. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. You can kind of get away with it if like there's like a level 20 base out there and you're like a 30. You could probably just attack them and be fine. But you never know. Like, they could be garrisoned by a whole bunch of guys. It could be a trap, right? So if that opponent has lower tier troops, you scout, they have lower tier troops. You're level 6 or 7, they have 5, whatever. Lower tier troops and you can attack, yeah, you can solo attack that. With a good build like Heresy, you'll take a minimal casualties, you'll be fine. Even if it's just like 1 tier difference. Go ahead and do that solo attack. You also, one thing you want to check on too is how many stacks they have. What I mean by stacks, and I've talked about this in previous videos, is how many of these little, I'll go into my base. How many of these different unit types do they have? Is it all filled out here like mine? Like, do they have a ton of these? Because each time you go to attack, you're going to need to dedicate an attack to killing some of these. So the more of these they have, the longer it's going to take down their entire army. If somebody was zeroed recently, they might only have rebuilt their top tier. If that's the case, all you have to do is get through their dreadnoughts and you're good. But like, if they have a ton of these stacks, it makes it tougher to get through the battle because you have to split your forces more. So just keep that in mind too when you're scouting. If they have a lot of stacks, then you could probably still solo it if they're a lower tier than you, but you might take a little bit of casualties on that. So like, yeah, lower tier, but a lot of stacks, you could still solo it, but expect to take like some casualties on that. Now, if they're lower tier and they don't have very many stacks, yeah, go for that all day because you'll probably wipe them before they even get a chance to punch back because they're so heavily concentrated in that 1 tier that every time you swing, you're going to be hitting valid targets. You're not wasting time hitting level 2s and 4s while their tier 6s fight back. You're going to be hitting their tier 6s or tier 7s every single time and you'll take them down eventually, right? So keep that number of stacks thing kind of in the back of your head when you're doing your attacks. Moving on, if they have the same tier as you, you're tier 6, they're tier 6. That's hard to say. Expect about even casualties on that. You can solo, but expect significant casualties, like 50% or more of your forces. So if you're willing to take that loss, then go for it. But if you're not, then I wouldn't attack. Same thing with the stacks. If they have a lot of stacks, expect more casualties. If they have fewer stacks in the same tier, expect lower casualties, but you know, you can probably still solo attack. So if they have, actually, as a matter of fact, I'll change that. If they have a lot of stacks and they're the same tier as you, you should rally. You should rally that. Because if you can get 1 person on board with you, you're doubling your Primaris and your Vanguard numbers, and you're going to take a lot fewer casualties, even between the 2 of you. So I think you should absolutely rally if it's the same tier and they have a lot of those stacks. Moving on, if they have a higher tier, either rally or just don't attack. In order to beat a higher tier, I think you need like 4 or 5 to 1 numbers. It's absurd how much of an advantage in numbers you need. For example, it was like 40,000 or something people, troops attacking Monster and one other guy in a fort, and we couldn't beat him. Like, it was probably 4 or 5 to 1 odds, and he had like a tier or two higher than us, and I think he had like 2 tiers higher. He had like a lot of level 8s and some level 7s, and it just, we barely put a dent in them. So if they're a tier higher, probably avoid attacking. It's just better just to save your troops. It's not worth punching a brick wall. It's just not. So if they're like 2 tier higher, especially if you're tier 4 and they're tier 6, or you're tier 5 and they're tier 7, maybe you can contribute to the battle by sending those attack speed debuffers, but don't send any troops. Number 1, you'll just be taking up rally space for somebody else that could have higher tier. And number 2, your troops are just going to die, and it's not worth sacrificing your troops over. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. It's kind of a rule of thumb. Even tiers, expect even casualties. So you should rally. I would probably always rally if I see the same tier as me. That's just, I'm a little more conservative. If you're okay with losing troops, you can go at it alone. But I'm a little more conservative with casualties. I like to keep my troops around. So just keep that in mind. Basically always want that advantage. You want to be punching down. You want to be punching down to a lower tier if you can. And if you can't, you need numbers. You need a rally. So that pretty much covers some of the advanced things. I think this video has gone on long enough, so I'll leave it there. I'm sure I forgot some stuff, but yeah, let me know what you think. You know, shoot me a message in Discord or whatever, you know, if you think I forgot something. Eventually I will come along and make like a, hey, this video is all the stuff that I forgot to mention in the previous videos, like a compilation of all the things that I missed. So send me suggestions for that. But yeah, hopefully you found this useful. Hopefully it helped you figure out some kind of the more advanced things with the battle system, and I'll see you guys on Discord and in chat. Take care. Bye.